For Civic Media News, I'm Stuart J. Waddles.
The law firm of Gingras, Thompson & Wachs has a track record of making life-changing positive differences for their clients. $5.25 million to a woman who suffered brain injuries and her husband passed away when struck by a drunk driver. $1 million to 3 different individuals injured by drunk drivers. $1 million settlement to a man injured in a motorcycle accident. Call Gingras, Thompson & Wachs, 855-954-1186.
Calling to Gingras, Thompson & Wachs. GTWLawyers.com.
Get ready to dominate the field like never before. Get to Soccer World in Brookfield. They have a great selection of shoes, apparel, and accessories to help kick your game into high gear. Soccer World's team of soccer experts have over 38 years of experience in the retail and soccer market. From cleats to shin guards, jerseys to coaching equipment, they'll help you stay ahead of the game. Plus, look to Soccer World for all your team business needs. Soccer World, 12615 West North Avenue in Brookfield, or online at soccerworldofbrookfield.net.
The summer heat can really get to you. Hot, sticky, you feel like you're melting. But Wauwatosa, coming in July, it'll be easy to cool off. Enjoy Ice Cream Social. This family-run, family-friendly business is more than just ice cream. It's a cool community hangout spot for friends and family. Let's talk about the ice cream. 16 delicious rotating flavors direct from the chocolate shop in Madison. The perfect way to stay sweet and cool this summer. Opening in July. Joy Ice Cream Social. Scoop, snack, shop. 8334 West North Avenue. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram.
Local radio for your community. Civic Media broadcasting across the state.
It's great to be here to speak directly to the woke mob.
The liberals have basically made up this whole agenda that guacamole is made of avocados. It's not the truth.
Ticked off, tee off. This is it.
Scubbity boo boo. Scubbity doo.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristen Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin!
When will it ever be palatable to raise the age of Social Security? 844-967-2789. That is 844-96-PARTY. Is it ever going to be the right time to start to raise the age of Social Security when you think about the cost of that program? You think about people who are living longer, but at any given moment, the people who are in the, within the 10-year range of being eligible are going to fight like hell to make sure that that doesn't happen. And so is there ever going to be a time to do this that it's going to be like, all right, yep, this is the right thing to do? I would love to hear from you. 844-967-2789. And we already have a comment right out of the gate.
Excellent.
on the Facebook live stream from John Fenner. Never.
Okay, then. Thank you, John. I like that succinctness.
Yes. And so, Jane Manera, I will ask you first, since you are within that
couple years away. So
you obviously would not want this now, but do you think that there would ever be a palatable time to make this change?
No, I really don't. And no. Are we going to really expect people to work until they're 70 and 75?
But what if they're living to the 110?
Okay.
I'm just saying.
I know, but I don't. If we all aged the same, if we all kept our faculties at the same rate, if we all physically broke down at the same rate, but we don't.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we've talked to people who are retired but are still working because they like to be busy. One of my sisters is semi-retired, and she has been for a while, but she likes to do 20 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
But she's 73. She doesn't want to go back to work full time.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone is ever going to say, yep, let's raise it to 80.
I agree with you, but it's like, the background here is yesterday, a panel of 3/4 of the House Republican caucus released a budget proposal, And included in it is a provision that would raise the Social Security retirement age from 67 to 69. So it would gradually raise Social Security's full retirement age. So that's the age. I'm sure I don't have to explain this to a fair amount of people out there, but bear with me. The age at which people are eligible for full Social Security benefits to 69. So the current level is 67 for those born in 1960 or later. And so slight increase. And the way I understand this is there's not actually one, like when we talk about the retirement age, there's actually like 96 retirement ages. So there's one for each month between the ages of 62 and 70. And so what people call the full retirement age is just a placeholder in a formula that determines the benefit level at any one of those like months. So the 96 retirement ages. So people who retire at the full retirement age receive 100% of their primary insurance amount. And so that's what they're saying would go from 67 to 69. And, this is not the first time that they've talked about this. It's, I didn't see a lot of coverage of this proposal getting released yesterday. So it's obviously very early versus it being like a big splashy news story. But it just, for me, raised the question again, like, is it ever going to be...
Everybody's going to get on board with this.
Yeah. Because especially as you think about a lot of the people who vote for Republicans are older. And who among them is going to be like, yep, this is a good idea. Unless, I guess, if they're already wealthy, and I'm going to get to that in a minute, and have their retirement secure so they're not really worried about Social Security. But 844-967-2789, when will it ever be palatable to raise the age of Social Security?
Beverly from Richland Center is on the line. Hey, Beverly, what do you think?
I think 65 is fine. I don't think it should go up any higher than that. And the Republicans saying that we've got to increase the age because it's going insolvent. There are so many other ways to solve that problem. Even Chris Christie the other night in his town hall said, millionaires and the rich people, they probably don't need their Social Security. Why should we have to pay them?
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of changes that could be made.
Absolutely. Besides raising the age, you think there's other places to be looking at besides keep bringing up this point?
Oh, sure. It's just like the Republicans say we've got to keep cutting and keep cutting and keep cutting, rather than saying maybe we should increase taxes. It's the same level of argument.
Absolutely. So your answer is like John's, where it's never.
And mine. I'm with you on that, Beverly. I just don't think.
Yeah. And think about the fact that who in the country does most of the volunteering?
Yeah.
It's the people who are able to volunteer to retire, and then they go out and volunteer. They don't stop working, but they volunteer and support their communities. So you want people to work until they're dead, and who does the volunteer work?
You make really good points, Beverly, and I agree with you certainly about the income issue. Why should someone who's worth $1 billion get Social Security?
What do you think they even do with it?
Yeah.
It can't even be the amount of the interest that they make.
I know. Thanks for the call, Beverly.
844-967-2789, 844-96-party. David from Mequon. What do you think, David?
Well, to kind of rebut a little bit at your previous caller. So even billionaires that collect Social Security currently and multimillionaires, there's a cap as to the amount of money that, the max amount of Social Security benefit that any individual can get. So it's not like you get an unlimited check for Social Security. I can't remember what it is. I think it's like $3,700 a month or something. So even a billionaire, that's the max amount that they can get as far as Social Security is concerned. And if you look at what's happening in Europe, France is in the same predicament that they actually have a much lower retirement age.
Mm-hmm.
And, the question is that, people are living longer. And when you live longer, you're going to have to work a little bit longer, unfortunately. Now, some of the people now, like my mom, unfortunately, she died before she could even collect a check with Social Security. And so she paid into that for 30 some odd years, and she didn't see a nickel. And we,
Yeah.
we got what, a $255 death benefit, for her, passing away before she could even collect anything. So you have these issues where, yes, people are, kicking in and what have you, but the same token, we have to realize that when Social Security and Medicare and all that other stuff was put together, it wasn't like some crazy formula that they came up with, like, okay, we're going to start initially at 65. They literally picked that out of the air.
Yeah.
And at that time, 65 was, back then, much different than 65 is today, because obviously people can live a lot longer, where they could live into the 90s and
Even 100.
or so.
Yeah.
So we have to kind of keep that in perspective too.
So do you think that
I
there's
do
a time, like if we said it 20 years from now, so people who are in their 40s now would know that by the time they're 65, it's actually going to be 70. Do you feel like that would be palatable? Or like how much of a grace period do you think if we were ever going to change the age, you'd have to give people as far as to like mitigate their expectations of this is the age that I'm working till?
Well, they have they have this life expectancy whole thing going on now with different age groups. If you're born year 2000, you should live to automatically like 80 years old or whatever it is. I forgot what it is. But again, I think we have to look. I'm not sure what that how that number gets associated with. The one thing I would recommend, though, one thing that I think is frustrating. So my dad is 87. Okay, he collected Social Security well before he was at full retirement age.
Okay.
The thing for him, though, that stinks is that he's taxed on his Social Security. Again, even though he paid into it, that is considered taxable income, that's nuts. I think that's really a huge disservice to people that are retiring. Well, we're going to tax you for this. And then that's why people are moving to, like the Floridas of the world, the Texas and, places like that, because at the state level, at least you're not going to get nicked, but at the federal level, you will.
Yeah.
So in the state of Wisconsin, that is why you see a lot of retirees don't want to stick around Wisconsin, and they move to a state where they're not going to be penalized for collecting Social Security.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for the
Thanks
call,
a lot,
David.
Dave. Appreciate it. 844-967-2789, 844-96-party if you want to check in.
You know what? This is a totally different tangent and probably something I'd have to research a lot more. But as David just mentioned, and they've talked about this, many people have talked about this as far as, first it starts with snowbirds and people who retire to different places because of income taxes and stuff like that. But simultaneously, is that not transferring? And I'm going to say this carefully because I'm not trying to make it sound, but like the aging health burden as we talk about boomers aging. And I know that I don't know the number off the top of my head, but there's like predictions out there as far as like what the Alzheimer's is going to cost the US in the next 20 years because of the amount of people who are aging. And so I think it would be interesting to look at like prediction models as far as where the migrating retiring age and like what that could potentially do to the health systems in those states. But that's a totally different topic. And so before I go down that rabbit hole, we're going to go back to the question, when will it ever be palatable to raise the age of Social Security? 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-party. And we will take your calls when we come back. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Line racing, 18 holes of classic golf, Wisconsin's #1 steakhouse, hundreds of newly renovated rooms. Check it out at ChulaVistaResort.com.
Chula Vista Resort is one of the nation's top 10 indoor water parks for USA Today's 2023 Reader's Choice Awards. Find out why at ChulaVistaResort.com.
So, I have a question for all you guys out there. Why is it that I see you hauling all kinds of stuff in your trucks? Lumber, ATVs, furniture, and everything is strapped down tight, except you. I mean, come on, fellas. You're just as important as your buddy's blue plaid sofa. Buckle up.
Pickups rock. They also roll. Buckle up in your truck and arrive alive. Sponsored by the Wisconsin Department of Transportation.
Weather brought to you by Fresh Fin, bringing you a fresh and healthy fast casual experience. Seafood, chicken, pork, or tofu. The bowl options at Fresh Fin are endless. Check them out at the corners of Brookfield, Bayshore Mall, East Side, and 3rd Ward, or online at freshfin.com.
Continue the conversation online. Find and follow Civic Media on Facebook and on Twitter.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Mainly cloudy skies expected this afternoon with a high of 69. North winds 8 to 15 miles an hour. Partly cloudy skies tonight. Lows level off around 48. Daytime highs approaching 73. Tomorrow, mainly sunny skies. Dry with seasonal temperatures Saturday and Sunday, and highs from the upper 70s to the low 80s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 60.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Madnair, and we are asking the question, when will it ever be palatable to raise the age of Social Security? Because yesterday, a panel of the House Republican caucus released a budget proposal, and in it there was a provision that would raise the Social Security retirement age. And so basically it would specifically the Social Security's full retirement age, and it would raise it gradually from 67, where it is currently, to 69. And there was a bunch of other things in there that I don't feel like getting into today. But as far as this question that continues to feel like it pops up, that is never to a certain group that is close to that age, it is always going to be
no.
Yes. Like, don't do that.
Right.
And so I don't like, what is the solution as far as, is this ever going to be a thing that people are, the majority of people are going to be like, yeah, that makes sense. 844-967-2789.
Randy from Waukesha is on the line. Hey, Randy, what do you think?
Well, as far as the age going up, yeah, that's a good point. But the reason I called was because your previous caller said that we get taxed on our Social Security, only federal. In Wisconsin, we don't get taxed on Social Security income.
So you don't. When did you start collecting, Randy?
When I was 62, I got laid off, and I wasn't going to find comparable employment then, but I knew I could work part-time and do things. So I went ahead and started collecting at 62. My original plan, my original thinking was to work till 70 for that bigger amount of money, until my brother pointed out to me, when you get to all that bigger money, first you got to make up all the money you left on the table by not collecting earlier. Which is why, I changed my thoughts on that. I
Interesting.
Wait till I was 70. But if they have to raise it, they have to raise it. We're not all in the same condition at 60 years old or 70 years old. Some of us are in pretty good shape. Some of us are hurting pretty bad.
Yeah, definitely.
But you're saying, as someone who's been paying into it, or who has been getting your payments, you don't pay taxes on it in Wisconsin?
Not in Wisconsin.
Oh, There we go.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for calling, Randy. 844-967-2789. 844-96-PARTY. Texter from the 414. First, there are many people in very physical professions who either can't or for whom it would be very hard to keep working. The most obvious solution is to actually have everyone pay at the same rate. Once you've reached a certain income level, you don't pay anymore. Social Security is a group pension plan that's supposed to be for everyone. Everyone should pay at the same rate, just like most such plans.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And also from the 414, life expectancy is actually going down in the U.S.
Yes. And as far as what I understand, as far as life expectancy, the age group that it's actually bringing it down right now, well, one, it was COVID. And so it'll be interesting to see as COVID is still obviously an issue. It is not the top issue anymore, but with the age expectancy is going down because of opioid overdoses. And so that is a much younger group.
Yes.
That is dying of overdoses. That is bringing down the average, as far as I understand that statistic to be interpreted as. But it is a good point. We got Mike Van Summeren on the YouTube live stream. Social Security became taxable under Reagan as part of the tax cuts he passed for the wealthy. He had to fill a revenue shortfall, which is why he taxed seniors and their Social Security. Oh, Reagan.
St. Ronnie. St. Ron. 844-967-2789. 844-96-PARTY. Dave from West Bend on the line. Hey, Dave.
Hi, just a couple of comments real quick. With taxing in the state of Wisconsin, don't you have to make like a certain amount of or collect a certain amount of Social Security before it can be taxed? I think there's probably some people that aren't really generating that much income from their Social Security where they're not taxed.
Well, we just heard from Randy saying that in Wisconsin, you don't get taxed on your Social Security.
But you do from the Fed.
But that you do from the federal. For your federal income taxes, you do get taxed, but not on the state level as far as the income tax.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I don't think there's a one size fits all for retirement. We probably all know some people that when you talk to them about retiring, it's like you're talking a foreign language. It could be somebody that really enjoys their job or their business that they've developed. And, stopping work is they plan on working until they die. Everybody's not like that. But overall, I think that the retirement age, you either stay the age that it is or lower it.
Or lower it. Interesting.
That's never going to happen, Dave.
I think. Well, I started collecting when I was 62. I never really had any jobs that I really was in love with. I couldn't wait, and I also, fortunately, I've been able to avoid working part-time. I mean, working for 35, 40 years was enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Dave.
Thanks for the call, Dave. We got to go to another break, but let us know will it ever be palatable to raise the age of Social Security, even if you're 20 years from now, as much as things change. But every time they bring this up, it feels like there's some group that's going to get screwed over. So is there ever going to be a time where this is, feasible? 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-PARTY. We'll be back in a minute. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Summer, 5:40 a.m. WAUK has a new lineup at 12:15. Wisconsin Roundtable, 1 to 3, the Todd Alba Show on 5:40 a.m. WAUK.
CBS News Brief. Neither inflation nor higher interest rates kept Americans from spending last month. Retail sales were up 0.3%, including at car dealerships and hardware stores. But unemployment signups rose again last week. Bankrate's Mark Hamrick.
New claims were just above the 200,000 mark as we began this year. They have been on an upward trek as job cuts have accelerated.
Supreme Court's just upheld protections for Native American children. It prevents them from being removed from their families for fostering or adoption. The High Court rejecting an appeal from a white couple that the provision was a form of racial discrimination. A day after more than a dozen tornadoes pounded the South, the possibility of more severe storms looms. Meteorologist Stephanie Abrams at the Weather Channel.
There's a threat for tornadoes from Kansas all the way down into Texas. We could see supercells, large hail, and winds over 75 miles an hour.
CBS News Brief. I'm Deborah Rodriguez.
News is brought to you by Gingras Thompson and Walks, a statewide team of personal injury lawyers getting you the justice you deserve. Call 855-954-1186 for a free consultation.
For Civic Media News, I'm Stuart J. Waddles. Here's what you need to know in southeast Wisconsin. A small plane crash near the local airport in Watertown resulted in the deaths of 2 people yesterday. The cause of the crash is still under investigation. The plane was a Mooney M20R, capable of seating 4 people, although only 2 were on board at the time. Along with sharing $500 million with local governments across the state, the bipartisan shared revenue deal will allow Milwaukee and Milwaukee County to raise taxes, but does require the city to spend that money on pensions or police and fire departments. Governor Evers still needs to sign it. Pool problems plague one local community. Melissa Kay has more.
Kenosha is facing the possibility of not opening 2 of its city-operated swimming pools for the summer due to a shortage of lifeguards. The city is currently accepting applications for part-time lifeguards, offering to cover the cost for Red Cross certification.
For Civic Media News, I'm Stuart J.
When
Waddles.
it comes to achieving successful jury verdicts and settlements, one law firm stands out above the rest. Gingras Thompson and Walks, a $6.2 million settlement for a woman permanently paralyzed as a result of medical malpractice. $4.9 million to members of a family injured due to the negligence of a truck driver and his employer. Call Gingras Thompson and Walks today, 855-954-1186.
All into it, Gingras Thompson and Watts, GTWLawyers.com.
Get ready to dominate the field like never before. Get to Soccer World in Brookfield. They have a great selection of shoes, apparel, and accessories to help kick your game into high gear. Soccer World's team of soccer experts have over 38 years of experience in the retail and soccer market. From cleats to shin guards, jerseys to coaching equipment, they'll help you stay ahead of the game. Plus, look to Soccer World for all your team business needs. Soccer World, 12615 West North Avenue in Brookfield, or online at soccerworldofbrookfield.net.
Did you know the country music Hall of Fame group the Oak Ridge Boys is celebrating 50 years of great music? The boys are on tour and will be playing the Menominee Nation Arena in Oshkosh Friday, June 16th. Their 4-part harmony upbeat songs are legendary, but do you know which of their many hit singles topped the country charts and became a top 5 on the pop charts? Is it Bobby Sue, Elvira, or their holiday song, Thank God for Kids? The answer coming up.
I'm the new guy. I joined in October of 73. I was 25 years old, and here it is 50 years later. I'm still singing with the Oak Ridge Boys, and I'm 75 years old.
That's Joe Bonzel, the tenor of the group. I talked with him about the Oshkosh show and their fans.
They can expect to hear a fast-paced show, lots of music, lots of singing. You can bring grandma, bring the kids.
Well, welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Madnair, and we are wrapping up our conversation around is there ever going to be a good time to raise the age of Social Security? So far, we've heard basically no.
Pretty much not.
Pretty much, we've yet to hear from someone who's made an argument of like, yeah, this is gonna be the best policy to do just that. But still taking your calls and your texts 844-967-2789.
414 says instead of changing eligibility through age, how about Social Security be flat taxed? The same tax on everyone, regardless of income. Leave the age alone, please. And from the 262 Social Security, it's one thing when you're talking about other countries, you have to consider they have far more robust universal healthcare programs.
That is also very
That
true.
is very true.
That's very different. Well, and that's what's so wild to think about, the protests that are still happening in France as far as changing the pension age, that I think even as of where did I see this? This month, French pension reform protesters briefly stormed 2024 Olympics headquarters, and that was June 6th.
Oh, wow.
So they are still protesting from raising the age, I think, from 62 to 64, if I'm remembering that correctly, as far as what the change was that they want to make. And that is also on top of the fact that they do have a very robust
healthcare
system. Compared to us. And I was having this conversation last night. I went to the night market in Milwaukee and talking about maternity leave. And I was talking to a couple who he owns a bunch of his own businesses and restaurants and bars and stuff like that. So, and their kids are, one just graduated high school, one's in high school. So this was a while ago, relatively. But he was like, I took 2 weeks off, and I think she was back to work within 4 weeks, because she was orthodontist assistant or something, and she was hourly. And I, as compared to, and it's just so funny how we think about that, because one, there's certain companies in the US, like a Google. Like I have a friend who's working for Google who's pregnant right now. She's due in July. She's taking 9 months off.
Wow.
And that's what Google pays her.
Wow.
And
they're going to pay her for 9 months.
They're going to pay her for 9 months. And I because I said, I was like, I'm taking 12, and like, I'm lucky enough to be at a place that is allowing me to take 12. But then you think about, there's a certain countries where that, like, the whole year is like, that's just what it is. And like the range of what is expected when it comes to taking care of your health or postpartum or all these different things, where it's not that uncommon for people to go back to work after having a baby, of which your body, it's pretty traumatizing. And some people are back to work within a week or two.
I can't even imagine. I just the difficulty in parting from your infant that early must just be excruciating.
Well, on top of that, also, who's going to take care of it?
Well, right.
I know as of right now, there is, starting at 10 o'clock today, there is a protest happening. I don't know, a protest, but there is, I guess, a protest happening for Save the Child Care Counts that's happening in Madison right now, to try to advocate for including provisions in our state budget to continue to fund childcare. So we've talked about it before on this on the show, as far as if we as a state do not backfill what was part of federal funds to, as far as the infrastructure bill, I think that was the infrastructure.
I believe so.
And there's going to be, it's already, the scarcity and the expense of childcare is only going to get worse if we don't do something in this budget to supplement it, because half of Wisconsin already lives in a childcare desert, meaning there's not even availability. And I would say the cost of actually getting childcare, for even if you can access it, is very expensive.
Yes.
And so to not have any kind of subsidies for that, it's only going to get more expensive, and more childcare centers are only going to close. And so I know that's happening this morning. And so hopefully that'll make a difference.
One can hope.
One can hope.
One can always hope.
But speaking of the Capitol, there's a lot going on there. It was funny. I'm good friends with Jesse Opoyan, who for the last 10 years had been at the Cap Times as a political reporter, and the Capitol Times, or the Capitol Bureau chief. And now she's in her second week of being the political reporter for Journal Sentinel.
Yeah.
So I just texted her, goes, "How's it going?" And she just wrote back, "Busy."
Jesse's always busy.
But this is an especially busy time. So I'm going to try to run through as many of the updates as I can of what's been happening in Madison in the 10 minutes we have in this segment. Probably can't get too deep into anything. We'll revisit things as we need to. But here's, kind of a rundown of what's going on in Madison, where we're at the, it's mid-June. This budget is supposed to be done by the end of June. And things are both being productive and a little testy. Emotions, I think, are running a little high. So yesterday, the legislature passed the bill that averts Milwaukee's financial crisis. So it lifts aid to local governments. So state lawmakers passed the controversial legislation that keeps Milwaukee from entering a fiscal crisis in a bipartisan vote that pushed 12 Republicans to vote against the legislation and 19 Democrats to vote in favor of it. So don't see that very often as far as much of a split from the moderates kind of being like, let's get this done, and people on both sides voting against it. But the result boosts funding in local governments across Wisconsin by increasing the amounts of revenue that returns to those governments from the state. So this is known as shared revenue.
Shared revenue.
And it allows the city of Milwaukee and Milwaukee County to each implement a new and or additional sales tax through 2/3 votes of the Common Council and the County Board of Supervisors, as opposed to letting voters decide. But to get this done, the big trade-off was it required Evers to agree to a separate bill, which boosts funding for private school vouchers, which, as you can imagine, over the last week has drew a fair amount of outrage from Evers' oldest allies, which is the Wisconsin Teachers Union.
Sure.
Because it falls way short of the funding that was asked for public schools. It does give some more money to public schools, but not nearly what they were asking for. And it is a huge boon to private schools, charter schools, and the voucher program. And so that legislation also passed in both chambers, with 2 Democrats, each in the Senate and Assembly, joining Republicans to vote yes. But certainly not the same amount of bipartisanship as there was on the shared revenue bill.
Right.
So once the shared revenue bill is signed by Evers, this is going to fall into the hands of the Common Council and the County Board in Milwaukee, where they will have to get 2/3 vote on it. And it's not known exactly, but that is going to be, that's not a slam dunk either, because there is a fair amount of people on both of those, on the Common Council and the County Board, who are already pretty vocal about how mad they are about all of this and about the overreach into local control. And there's been criticism from Milwaukee Common Council members who said the policies contained in the local government funding bill are, quote, overreaching, micromanaging, and frankly, racist. And in particular, council members have objected to the policies that take aim at diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives at the city and statewide. And this is a whole other battle that we've been hearing about for a while, as far as like DEI, the new boogeyman. After it was CRT.
Replacing CRT.
Yeah,
yes.
like it was CRT. It's like CRT, trans issues, and now DEI. And Voss responded to that criticism of racist policies yesterday. And he said, liberals, quote, want race, color, and gender to be a part of everything and almost mandated for what people should believe. That's not what taxpayer dollars should be for. If you want to raise money in the private sector, if you want to have a bake sale or put money into your own ideology, you have every right to do that because we live in America. But it's not right to use taxpayer dollars to try to push one ideology over another.
This seems cherry picky to me.
It just, I heard a great analogy, and I feel like there's probably another day that we can get more into the DEI conversation. But as far as like, it was legal and the government had overreached for so much of our history. When we think of redlining, when we think of like just how many laws that were in place that disproportionately affected minorities negatively. And now that we're at a place in society where we recognize that that is wrong, and we're trying to make up for the fact that there are groups of people who were held down because of the government, but now the government shouldn't be involved. And so that's a deeper conversation for another day. But because of a different place where Voss also wants to cut DEI, which is the UW system. They, as of this week, they have not voted on this yet, but it is at the UW level. Assembly Speaker Robin Vos proposed a $32 million cut in an attempt to dismantle campus diversity offices. But yesterday, Governor Evers said that he would veto any state budget if Republicans advance the $32 million cut to the UW system, which is a pretty bold, considering how much negotiation has been happening across all of these different bills. But he said yesterday to cut at this point in time, the University of Wisconsin system, the University of Wisconsin system, when we have a $7 billion surplus, is irrational. I'm hopeful that will change before the budget is passed. And in reaction to that, Vos said he couldn't imagine Evers would veto the largest investments in public schools, the largest investments in generations in our local governments, and more money just for about every priority he has, which is true. As far as, like, is he going to, all of this other work that's been done,
squash it all
over the $32 million cut? But, like, we haven't even talked about the proposals for UW and how much this completely hamstrings them over this DEI thing.
Well, and the whole School of Engineering is just, it's so short-sighted. It's stunning.
But the whole thing is short-sighted. Like, the entire argument that we should not be fun, like, that the gem of a UW system and how that keeps talent, how that grows talent, how that keeps young people and working age population in Wisconsin, and to continue to cut and cut and cut and not support and, like, really prop it up as this, like, us versus them from the Republicans in the legislature versus the UW system, to me just feels so, I mean, it's not new, but it also just feels so incredibly short-sighted. And especially because, like, I don't think Jay Rothman, head of the UW system, is, like, a staunch liberal, right? Like, doesn't he comes from the private sector, and, like, everything he's said as far as what he's trying to do with the UW system, like, he said, like, he's made arguments of why diversity is good as in, like, an economic reason for not cutting these programs. And yet that is the topic du jour and the issue, like, the battle cry as far as why they don't deserve more money. But then now we only have a minute left. So here, a couple more things that are happening in Madison. We'll dive deeper into these over the next week. But the legislature also approved a series of housing-related bills, which passed through a lot of bipartisanship. They also voted to boost road funding, but at an increase of an electric vehicle fee. So it would be $100, it'd be $175 instead of $100. And also, Vos also said Medicaid expansion will never happen so long as he is speaker.
Never.
We
don't need it.
Who says no to $1 billion? Robin Vos says no to $1 billion. All right. Certainly not enough time for any of that, but that is your Capital Catch-Up. When we come back, Beyonce can raise inflation. Who knew? This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Larry, it's your mom. Did you know the Civic Media Network covers the whole state of Wisconsin? They can help your business get the word out, whether you want to reach a smidge of folks or just want the whole kit and caboodle. Call 608-819-8255. Okay then, bye.
Hey, this is Lindsay Kindred at 540 WAUK The Shaw. At Civic Media, we love our local communities and want to share your stories. Submit your local event and we'll let our listeners know. Email me, Lindsay Kindred, at info@civicmedia.us. That's info@civicmedia.us.
Hey, this is Matt from Design Garden. Remember when the internet was new? Back then, you had to leave your house to start a business. Companies used to pay programmers bags of cash to get online. Now, small businesses can get online with a Facebook business page, or Squarespace, or Google My Business, or WordPress. But which tools should you use? Can you afford to go down the wrong path? Design Garden uses modern tools to build your website the right way. Find us online at design.garden. Again, That's design.garden.
This is the story of a very special woman. Just a few knew about her superpowers. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Daytime highs approaching 69 this afternoon under mainly cloudy skies. North winds 8 to 15 miles an hour. Lows dip down to about 48 tonight. Partly cloudy skies. Mainly clear skies tomorrow. High of 73. Dry and warmer Saturday and Sunday with highs from the upper 70s to the low 80s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist.
Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Madnair. And yesterday in the U.S., the Federal Reserve did indeed held off on raising interest rates for the first time.
Long time.
Long time. It's been a pretty historic campaign to curb inflation that's been going on for 15 months. So now it's giving them more time to assess the impact of previous hikes on the economy. The Fed's decision leaves the benchmark federal funds rate at its current rate range of 5% to 5.25%, ending a streak of 10 consecutive increases, which is largely due, I think, to the earlier reports that inflation has gone down some. But in Sweden, not quite the same story.
This is a crazy story.
So yesterday, Sweden reported higher than expected inflation for May, causing economists to wonder what could have kept prices elevated. And then it hit them. Beyonce.
What?
Beyonce. The pop superstar kicked off her Renaissance tour in Stockholm last month, drawing 80,000 plus fans to the city's Friends Arena over 2 nights.
Wow.
In response to the influx of concertgoers, hotels and restaurants raised their prices to such a degree that it boosted overall inflation.
Oh my goodness.
So the fact that one person, by the sheer force of her popularity, was responsible for higher inflation in an entire country is remarkable, not normal. Insert adjective here. But I mean, I don't know if has anything like this ever happened before. At least in their one of the chief economists in Sweden said, quote, "It's quite astonishing for a single event. We haven't seen this before." And so, Beyonce's tour arrives in the U.S. next month. So hopefully that doesn't affect Jerome Powell's decision to raise interest rates again. But isn't that unbelievable?
It really is. And all I can think of is let's hope that Beyonce and Taylor Swift don't go on a global world tour because they're going to wreck economies all over the globe.
Well, they basically are right now. I mean, they're the two of them together being on their tour, because Taylor's starting to announce international dates.
Oh, she is.
I think the first one was in Argentina. Because they're both, I don't know if they're actually, this has been stated, but either of them, both of them, could be the first artist to ever reach $1 billion tour based on the tours that they're on right now. And which is unbelievable. And it was funny because I had a friend ask me the other day out of the blue, he was like, "Who do you think is the artist of our generation?" And I said, either Taylor Swift or Beyonce. And I would say I like both of them. I'm a bigger Beyonce fan than Taylor Swift fan. But I have come to very much recognize how unbelievably talented Taylor Swift is.
They both are.
What was really wild to me when I was thinking about that question is no men even come up for like of my like because even after Taylor Swift and Beyonce, when we talk about longevity, when we talk about cultural influence, when we talk about the amount of what they do to Ticketmaster and how expensive, like what people are willing to pay to go see them, how many people are willing to pay that to go see them. Those two are for sure the top that come to mind. After that is potentially like a Lady Gaga.
Sure.
Potentially at one point, not probably never again. Kanye might have been up there at one point. But like I can't think of any men who would top that list.
That's a really good point.
And not that have never, because obviously the Beatles, Michael Jackson, and like in previous generations,
But
it was certainly men.
But
like currently, if you think about like Gen Z, millennial age right now, because like Beyonce and Destiny's Child, I was in middle school when they first came out with their Bills, Bills, Bills. And like I think I was in like 6th or 7th grade. And she has been in the dominant culture since the late 90s and is still dominating it. Taylor Swift is a little bit behind her, but still, since she was 14,
she was a teenager.
She's been just like never not relevant, basically, and only gaining probably popularity and reinventing themselves as far as like, because you think about like Madonna before them reinventing herself, but I don't know. Do you have any? I would love to hear from people at home, 844-967-2789. As far as the current like Gen Z, millennial, even Gen X generations, like who is the artist, the musical artist of that generation, if not Beyonce and Taylor Swift? And is there anyone that you can think of that's a man? 844-967-2789. Can you think of anyone?
My mind immediately went to the Backstreet Boys, but that's 90s, right?
And they haven't. I would say their longevity was less than a decade.
It was probably about 10 years, right?
I don't even know if it was that. Because by the time, I mean, they gained popularity when I was also in middle school, and I feel like by the time I was in high school, NSYNC, like, because I would say by the time it was college, like. Justin Timberlake went solo in like 2003 or 2004. And then NSYNC was over. And I'm not sure any of the Backstreet Boys necessarily had a super successful solo run.
Except for Timberlake, no.
So yeah, so I would say no, like definitely not as far as a career that spans 2 to 3 decades at this point.
I mean, the Rolling Stones are still alive.
Yeah, but I would not say that they are of this generation at all. Like, even though they're still touring and they span generations, I would never argue that they're the artists of like my generation.
Right.
Can you think of anyone else?
Unless it's some country artists.
But I don't think that's of a generation. That's of a genre.
Right.
And so,
sorry guys, you got your work cut out for you.
Seriously. And I was like, even rock, like bands, are there any bands right now that like top that? And granted, I am not the most informed music fan. So maybe someone out there who knows more about, I don't know, but just as a layperson off the top of my head, these two women, both financially and I think culturally, are absolutely dominant. So much so that they are changing economies.
Affecting inflation.
So, all right. Well, when we come back from the top of the hour news, Dr. Kristen Lyerly will be here for our weekly segment, Public Cervix Announcement. And then at 11:30 next hour, what's it like to grow up with a weird name? Do you have a weird name? What's the strangest name you've ever come across? Because, I got to name a kid someday pretty soon. So we're going to talk about that at 11:30. But for now, we're going to go to the news.
Get ready to dominate the field like never before. Get to Soccer World in Brookfield. They have a great selection of shoes, apparel, and accessories to help kick your game into high gear. Soccer World's team of soccer experts have over 38 years of experience in the retail and soccer market. From cleats to shin guards, jerseys to coaching equipment, they'll help you stay ahead of the game. Plus, look to Soccer World for all your team business needs. Soccer World, 12615 West North Avenue in Brookfield, or online at soccerworldinbrookfield.net.
You are listening to your local Civic Media radio station on air. Thank you. Did you know we are always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app too? And if you miss a show or game, find it wherever you get your podcasts or on our website, civicmedia.us.
You are listening to The Shaw, WAUK 540 AM Jackson, W266DR Waukesha, and always streaming on the Civic Media app.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by Progressive Insurance.
I'm Steve Kathan. Forecasters say 20 million people are in the weather danger zone today. CBS's Jim Krasula tells us a dozen tornadoes raced through 4 states yesterday.
Damaging winds and tornadoes have toppled trees, damaged buildings, and left tens of thousands without power across the South. A tree fell onto Glenda Williams' mobile home in Lexington, Mississippi.
It demolished 2 rooms. It went through a bedroom, bathroom, and came out through a dining room wall.
More severe weather, including tornadoes, is likely today across the South. The highest risk area of 4 out of 5 is across much of Oklahoma.
Minnesota is getting a dose of the smoke from Canadian wildfires. It's thick in Minneapolis.
The City Parks Board canceled all outdoor activities, and a women's minor league soccer match had to be moved indoors, all because of the thick, smoky haze that lingers over much of Minnesota. State Pollution Control Agency meteorologist Matt Tarleton says the unhealthy air has consequences for anyone who spends time outside.
You'll notice tickle in your throat, coughing, itchy, watery eyes. Those are the beginning symptoms.
The smoke is expected to linger until at least tomorrow. Steve Simpson for CBS News, Minneapolis.
The Supreme Court has preserved the system that gives preference to Native American families in foster care and adoption proceedings of Native children. The justices rejecting a push from red states and some white families who argued the system is based on race. A new economic report out this morning from the government. Bankrate.com's Mark Hamrick.
Retail sales rose 0.3% in May, better than expected. And excluding vehicle sales, retail sales were up 0.1%.
And from the CDC, the homicide rate for older teenagers rose to its highest point in nearly 25 years during the pandemic. And the suicide rate for adults in their early 20s was the worst in more than 50 years. Overseas, a harsh rebuke for former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. CBS's Holly Williams in London has more on a new report about pandemic lockdown parties while he was in power.
It is brutal. They conclude that he deliberately misled the House of Commons. That's the lower house in this country. In particular, Johnson claimed in Parliament that officials told him that social distancing rules had been followed at all times at the gatherings. The committee concluded that that simply was not true.
A 23-year member of Parliament has died.
Everything I had been taught to regard as a vice.
But Glenda Jackson was better known as an Oscar-winning actress. She did it twice. Jackson died at her London home. She was 87. Checking Wall Street. Right now, the Dow is up 271 points. This is CBS News.
Sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Looking for a career path with flexibility, great pay, and benefits? Go to progressive.com/careers and apply online today.
News is brought to you by Gingras Thompson and Walks, a statewide team of personal injury lawyers getting you the justice you deserve. Call 855-954-1186 for a free consultation.
For Civic Media News, I'm Stuart J. Waddles. Here's what you need to know in Southeast Wisconsin. Milwaukee's mayor calls the passing of the shared revenue bill a major achievement. And despite speaking out against it, the 6th District State Senator did vote for it.
You should be ashamed of yourselves.
Please direct your comments to the chair.
Well, you already know you should be ashamed of yourself.
That's State Senator LaTonya Johnson. Mayor Cavalier Johnson's statement says that he appreciates the efforts of Speaker Robin Vos and Majority Leader Devin LeMahieu. The Red Cross is helping 2 guys from Racine left without a place to live after a fire early yesterday. More than $100,000 of damage was done to the Olive Street home, with a cause still under investigation. Realtors in the greater Milwaukee area warn that a significant decline in year-to-year home sales poses a risk of depriving potential homeowners the chance to build wealth. The region experienced a 21% drop in home sales compared to last year. For Civic Media News, I'm Stuart J. Waddles.
The law firm of Gingras, Thompson & Walks has a track record of making life-changing positive differences for their clients. $5.25 million to a woman who suffered brain injuries and her husband passed away when struck by a drunk driver. $1 million to 3 different individuals injured by drunk drivers. $1 million settlement to a man injured in a motorcycle accident. Call Gingras, Thompson & Walks, 855-954-1186.
All into Gingras, Thompson & Walks. GTWLawyers.com.
Did you know the Country Music Hall of Fame group, the Oak Ridge Boys, is celebrating 50 years of great music? The boys are on tour and will be playing the Menominee Nation Arena in Oshkosh Friday, June 16th. Their 4-part harmony, upbeat songs are legendary, but do you know which of their many hit singles topped the country charts and became a top 5 on the pop charts? Is it Bobby Sue, Elvira, or their holiday song, Thank God for Kids? The answer coming up.
I'm the new guy. I joined in October of 73. I was 25 years old, and here it is 50 years later. I'm still singing with the Oak Ridge Boys, and I'm 75 years old.
That's Joe Bonzel, the tenor of the group. I talked with him about the Oshkosh show and their fans.
They can expect to hear a fast-paced show, lots of music, lots of singing. You can bring grandma, bring the kids, and they're not going to hear nothing they shouldn't hear.
And one thing you can expect to hear, the song Elvira. It is the Oak Ridge Boys' single hit to top both the country and pop charts. I'm Jerry Barr for the Civic Media Radio Network.
Your hometown radio, refreshed, keeping you informed, entertained.
That's what we like to do on this show. Find the comedy gold.
I just like non-fungible as a word.
It is a good word.
It's a wonderful, it just has a good mouthfeel.
La-di-da, la-di-da, la-la.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristen Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada. Hello, Wisconsin!
Hello, Wisconsin. Welcome to the 11 o'clock hour of As Goes Wisconsin. I am your host, Kristen Bry, along with producer on the board, Jane Nadnair. And it is that time of the week because it is Thursday that we welcome Dr. Kristen Lyerly to our program for our weekly segment, Public Cervix Announcement, where we talk about women's health and anything else that was kind of in the headlines that we can have a doctor's input on. How you doing, Dr. Lyerly?
I love it when you say it was that time of the week.
I didn't even realize I did that. Now I will emphasize it even more.
So good. I'm so good. How are you?
Good. I've told Jane I think I'm still in the sweet spot of pregnancy. But this week I have kind of felt like I got hit by a truck a little bit. So I don't know if that's normal for 24 weeks, but body's been like achy and it's been harder to stand for longer periods of time. I've started to get like the pins and needles. Is this normal? Of like in the same, like it's not as strong when you sit on your, like I'm a big fidgeter. I sit cross-legged a lot, like, and I'll sit on my foot sometimes when I'm sitting on a chair, which then inevitably means 20 minutes later, my foot is very asleep. But that feeling as the blood starts to go back to your foot or whatever other body part that falls asleep, and sometimes it's really painful. And what is happening this last week, it's not as painful as when your foot's actually asleep, but it's just like I get these little like twinges of like pins and needles in like the back of my legs or my feet. Is that normal?
It could be.
Or it could not be. So maybe I need to see my doctor.
Is it one side or both sides?
It's more on my left side than my right.
Uh-huh. It could be pins and needles, could be blood flow, it could be nerves. It's not unusual as your body is like your orientation is changing because you've got this extra little parasite in front of you. So it tends to change the way that you hold yourself. So sometimes there's a big nerve that runs through your pelvis called your sciatic nerve. You might be familiar with it. Sometimes that can get pinched and it can cause those kind of tingly feelings, and it can also cause a lot of pain. So it could be something as simple as, a nerve is getting compressed, or it could be just what you mentioned with, like, if your foot falls asleep and maybe blood flow isn't getting to that specific area. Does it help when you get up and move around?
It's usually after I've been up and moving around. So like the first time I really was noticing it was on Sunday during the Locust Street Fest. And eventually I was like, I can't be on my feet anymore. I'm going home at like 8. And as I was laying and just relaxing, I kept being like, oh my God, like what's going on with my feet?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hard to say. It could also be
Okay.
nutritional. Sometimes are you taking a prenatal vitamin? So
I am.
important. And I suspect that you probably are a pretty healthy eater, but maintaining I shouldn't assume.
Do Skittles and Cheetos fall under the healthy eating
I've
umbrella?
actually eaten way less Skittles than before I was pregnant. What I have eaten a lot is those chewy granola bars that you bought for the studio.
Well, that's not terrible.
I think I ate that entire box by myself in the last week. No, I eat pretty well, I would say.
Yeah, I'm recommending fruits and vegetables.
Yeah,
fiber.
I've been eating like a watermelon a week. Does that count?
Oh, that's how you got to look like that. But I'm chin.
But no, overall I am feeling pretty good. But that's I'm sure it will continue to change, and you're here to help us.
And it's always an option to go talk with a chiropractor who is skilled in taking care of pregnant women. Make sure that they're comfortable taking care of pregnant women, because our bodies are different when we're pregnant. Our joints are looser. Our orientation is different. They need to have an actual table. If you're going to be laying on your belly, a table that can accommodate your growing belly. So, chiropractic care can be very helpful in situations like this. So that might be something to explore.
Might be something to explore. All right. Well, let's get to some headlines from the week as far as health headlines. So this week, FDA panel recommends RSV shot to protect infants. So RSV, I feel like we heard a lot about this in the last year, like going into cold season last November, December. RSV was like a huge issue, but this isn't a new virus, right?
No, this virus has been around forever. It's a terrible virus. And it was part of the triple-demic. Remember the triple-demic last year with COVID
exactly.
and flu and RSV? Yeah, this is a bad virus, and it's really, really bad for little kids. So in a typical year, up to 80,000 children are hospitalized with this virus, and up to 300 little kids die because of it.
Jeez.
So this is a really devastating virus, and we have a treatment. I mean, we've had a treatment for a long time, but it hasn't been for everybody. It's only been for high-risk populations, and it's required multiple doses. This is a game changer. An FDA panel, not the full FDA, but just that preliminary panel, unanimously approved this shot for infants who are born or entering their first RSV season. So these are the tiniest of kiddos, but those tend to be those who are most affected.
So is this the V word? Is this a vaccine?
It is a V word vaccine. Sorry.
So is there going to be pushback of people who don't want to take it? But how effective is it?
Super effective. It's like 80% effective. And if you've ever had a kid with RSV, you'll be begging for this because it is miserable. They can't breathe. It is so scary. I was in the hospital with my oldest son who had RSV and was suffering, and just watching him struggle, I would have done anything to help him. So I get it. I understand that a lot of people are really reluctant, but I would encourage everyone, as you're considering vaccine recommendations, look at the risks and benefits and make a really educated decision for yourself and for your family. Don't get sucked in by all of the political badness. Like, truly think about your health and what science is telling us.
So what's next? Because this isn't something that necessarily could this be approved by the next RSV season, which I'm assuming is in the fall?
Yeah, I think it will. So it looks like they're going to come out. The CDC, it's kind of this long process where it has to be approved by the FDA, and then the CDC looks at it and they decide how it fits into the schedule. So we anticipate that the CDC will take it up in August. And this is something that is for babies, but they're also looking at another vaccine for moms, for pregnant moms.
Mm.
Yes, we do this with a vaccine. You may not have gotten to that point yet, but it's called the Tdap, the tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussis. Have you had this conversation already?
I literally, so this is a separate thing. I went to go check because this is a separate pregnancy thing that we can get into later if we have time. But I'm at 24 weeks and I was told I'll start to feel kicking at 23. So of course I immediately got a little paranoid that I haven't felt any kicking yet. So I went to go see my doctor yesterday and I saw her kick. She's fine. But she had mentioned that. She's like, all right, like it's not time for your
Tdap.
Tdap. It's
Uh-huh.
like the dub. It's like a dab. I think that's coming up soon-ish, but it was not time yet. So that was all I've heard about it since. So that's a vaccine that I will get.
That's a vaccine that has been approved for a long time. We do that one. So, like I said, it has 3 things in it: tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussis. Pertussis is whooping cough. And we
Okay.
give that one to pregnant moms with every pregnancy because it's not for you, it's for the baby. The
Got it.
last thing you want is for your baby to develop whooping cough. And if we vaccinate you, you send those antibodies to your baby, and your baby is born with that very effective immunity.
Got it. All right.
So
Well,
we have a
this
similar vaccine in the pipeline for RSV.
for RSV. Okay. Good to know. All right. You're listening to Public Service Announcement on As Goes Wisconsin with Dr. Kristen Lyerly. And we're going through some health headlines from this past week. And this next one, because it was within the last month that we were talking about the miracle drug of Ozempic and how it, Ozempic being meant for and approved for diabetes, type 2 diabetes management, but lots of people, especially lots of celebrities, using it for weight loss. And then there was headlines around how people who were taking it were also just seeing huge declines in like compulsive behaviors, and that this could be something as far as like addiction and how it could curb addictive behaviors. But we were all waiting for the other shoe to drop, and it sounds like
Always.
maybe it has.
Well, everything has risks and benefits.
Yes.
Like there's no silver bullet. So there are risks associated with Ozempic. And to be very clear, Ozempic and Wegovy are both the same medication. It's a semaglutide. They work the same way. We give them a little bit differently, but Wegovy is approved for weight loss. But
Okay.
but only for people who are obese, which means that your BMI is 30 or higher, or overweight with other comorbidities. So it is FDA approved for weight loss when it's given a certain way.
So why are so many people taking Ozempic then? If it's basically the same drug and with different names, but it seems like Ozempic is like needed by people who are actually managing their type 2 diabetes. Why are so many people taking one versus the other? And why does
There's also Mounjaro, which is another very
these names,
similar.
man. Who's in charge of coming up with drug names? Like, I feel like I don't know what takes more creativity: the person who comes up with drug names, or the people who come with like lipstick colors.
That's true.
Yeah.
I don't
Naming
know.
things is hard. I bet that person makes 6 figures.
Oh, and maybe maybe that's why they stick with Ozempic, because it's got kind of a snappy name, and
Yeah.
it's the one thing that people think about, like Ozempic equals weight loss. But when you look at these medications, it's not, like I said earlier, it's not a silver bullet. It does work really well for weight loss. It is probably the best thing that we have out there.
Interesting.
But it causes nausea, stomach pain, constipation, diarrhea. 10% of people who use it can't tolerate it, and they end up having to stop it.
Oh, interesting. And it's leading some people to the hospital?
So it's a little tricky because sometimes it's hard to know whether the side effect that they are dealing with is related to the Ozempic or related to an underlying medical condition, like, for example, pancreatitis or gallbladder issues, which can go along with being heavier. So,
Yeah.
if you are obese, you are more likely to have issues with pancreatitis or your gallbladder.
All right. Well, Dr. Kristen Lyerly will still be here when we come back. If you have any questions for her about your health or in general, 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-PARTY. And we'll still be here after the break. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
And bringing you a fresh and healthy fast casual experience. Seafood, chicken, pork, or tofu. The bowl options at Fresh Fin are endless. Check them out at the corners of Brookfield, Bayshore Mall, East Side, and 3rd Ward, or online at freshfin.com.
This summer, 5:40 a.m. WAUK has a new lineup.
Yes, that's awesome.
Starting at 6 a.m. Up North News, 8 to 10, The Earl Ingram Show. Mondays, 8 to 9, Under the Helmet with the Gravedigger. Gilbert Brown and Earl Ingram. 10 to 12, As Goes Wisconsin. At noon, Civic Media Network News. At 12:15, Town Call. 1 to 3, The Todd Alba Show. 3 to 4, Matt Flynn Direct. 4 to 6, The Devil's Advocates with Dom and Crute. And 6 to 7, The Maggie Dawn Show on 5:40 a.m. WAUK.
The Todd Alba Show.
We'll be moving to the afternoon, Monday through Friday, 1 until 3. Trigger Olson has graciously agreed to follow us into the afternoon. We're going to get to talk about the Lincoln Project and politics in Wisconsin, all across the state of Wisconsin.
I know, isn't that exciting? Where the beer is cold, the cheese curds are squeaky, the Harleys roar, the Eagles soar, and the Packers score, Todd.
The Todd Alba Show. Weekday afternoons from 1 till 3 on your local Civic Media radio station and on the app.
Thank you for listening to your local Civic Media radio station on air. Now join us anytime by finding and following our Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram pages. You'll also find social media links for your favorite shows and hosts on our website, civicmedia.us.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Daytime highs approaching 69 this afternoon under mainly cloudy skies. North winds 8 to 15 miles an hour. Lows dip down to about 48 tonight. Partly cloudy skies. Mainly clear skies tomorrow. High of 73. Dry and warmer Saturday and Sunday with highs from the upper 70s to the low 80s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 63.
That was not what I was expecting.
I was going to say, what music is this, Jane?
Ooh.
I stole something from Devils, and it said Dr. Feelgood, and I thought it was Aretha Franklin.
No, he's the one.
And so I just grabbed it, and that was not Aretha Franklin.
Who was it actually? I guess we don't know.
I'll do some. Was it? Look, Dr. Lyerly knows.
Were you a Motley Crue fan? Are you still a Motley Crue fan?
No, I'm a Duran Duran kind of gal.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Metnair, and we are talking to Dr. Kristen Lyerly for our weekly segment of Public Cervix Announcement, where we answer questions about women's health or health in general, and also run through some headlines that you may want a little more doctor's input on, including, the very popular drug right now, Ozempic, and Wegovy. Is that did I pronounce that right? And which a lot of people are interested in because, as you just said in the last segment, Dr. Lyerly, it is the most effective weight loss drug we have right now, but doesn't mean it doesn't come with side effects, which we're starting to understand.
Yeah, some of the side effects you would expect, like, what doesn't have the side effect of nausea and vomiting and that kind of stuff. But how about this one? Malnutrition. Because it's so effective that people forget to eat.
So is it because it's interesting to me because I am not taking it now, but before pregnancy, I have ADHD for the last 10 plus years. I've been taking Adderall, and that's certainly sometimes you forget to eat because it is something that's certainly, however it works, crushes your appetite. And is that a similar reason as to what, how Ozempic and Wegovy are working as far as where it does with your mind tricks as far as just focused on other things?
Yeah, different mechanism. is an agonist at a certain receptor that just causes you to feel full, and it also causes your stomach to empty more slowly. But when you're not thinking about it, it reduces your cravings and it reduces overeating. So when you're not thinking about food all the time, like most of us are, you just kind of forget. And then people get. Have you heard of Ozempic face?
No.
Oh, Ozempic face is when you've lost a lot of weight and then your face starts to look kind of like hollow, like Madonna before the plastic surgery.
Well, isn't that also a surgery that people are getting now to like remove what is it called? The buccal fat from your cheeks to have like the very chiseled, like high cheekbone look? Isn't that something people are actually paying to get right now?
Yeah, people like Ozempic face in some ways, but not in others. I guess if you could be selective about where you lost the fat from your face, that would be helpful. But you don't get to choose. You just lose the
No.
fat, and then you can end up looking like Mitch McConnell, like droopy dog.
Well, that's the thing. It's like if you have enough like tissue in your face, it helps with like the wrinkles, right? Because your face is more full versus the skin just hanging off of the bones.
So then, you take the Ozempic for the weight loss if you're a celebrity, and then you have to go see a plastic surgeon to get the fat put back on your face. Like it's a whole cycle. So be prepared for that.
Anything else people should know as far as
Very
Ozempic or
important.
Wegovy?
Yes, if you have an underlying eating disorder, which many of us have had in the past,
Mhm.
this can actually exacerbate your eating disorder because you haven't treated the underlying problem. So if you
Interesting.
do, make sure, always, regardless of whether you're going to take Ozempic or not, this is so important to get treated because, eating disorders have so many other side effects and problems
Yeah.
associated with them.
All right. Well, good to know.
You scared me off Ozempic, but good.
I was gonna say were you ever sold on Ozempic?
No, I'm very leery of those kinds of things. Having gone through innumerable weight loss programs over the years, and then the last thing that I was offered when I was working for a different station was this cool sculpting.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, they describe it and it's all miraculous and it's all perfect, and and it's like, but no one tells you again what can be some of the problems down the road. And now we're learning more about cool sculpting is not good for you. Liposuction is not good for you, and you can remove the fat cells that were annoying you, but when they come back, they're going to go someplace else.
Mm-hmm. And when something like this is new and trendy, you don't know what the long-term effects are going to be. So what happens when you go off of this medication? Are you going to gain all that weight back?
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't have long-term data.
So I guess instead of moving on to the last headline, which I think we'll keep for next week because we only have 2 minutes left with you, from your medical expertise, at what point is it advisable to do something, for lack of a better word, not natural, to try to lose weight? So either take a pill, as far as what is the trade-off between just like bodies can be healthy at any size, so long as you're working out and you have a healthy diet, like you can be still healthy even if your BMI is higher than average, et cetera. But like, at what point do you actually advise having more tools in your toolbox for someone to try to lose weight?
There are clear guidelines about this.
Okay.
Weight loss medication or bariatric surgery are indicated if your BMI is 30 or higher, or if your BMI is 27 or higher and you have medical comorbidities like blood pressure issues, diabetes, those things that we know go along with overweight and obesity. But the hardest thing I've found in talking with people is it's just hard to talk about this because when you are struggling with your weight, like many of us have in our lifetime, there's a whole other bunch of feelings and emotions that you have to unpack in order to actually get to the medical piece here. It's tough.
It is tough because I also think that there's a huge gap between health reasons to lose weight and societal, I'm trying to look a certain way to lose weight. And there's people who would seek additional help. It's like, you really don't need to lose any weight. You're just not supposed to be a runway model.
Normal
but that
BMI is
normal
18 to
BMI.
24. If you're in there, you're perfect.
All right, Dr. Lyerly, thank you as always. It's always fun to have you here. We will have you back next week for more health headlines and probably more pregnancy questions from me. But thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too, ladies. I always love hanging out with you.
All right. When we come back, what's the weirdest name or most unique name you've ever come across? Or did you grow up with a unique name? We would love to hear from you. 844-967-2789.
Somebody give me a
This summer, 5:40 a.m. WAUK has a new lineup. 4 to 6, the Devil's Advocates with Dom and Cruz. 6 to 7, the Maggie Dawn Show on 5:40 a.m. WAUK.
CBS News brief. Tornadoes did damage in 4 southern states, and the Weather Channel's Stephanie Abrams says more rough conditions could be coming.
Today into tonight, there will be several rounds of storms that are going to pump out the hail, lightning, and strong wind.
Parts of Kansas and Oklahoma, she says, could get the worst of it. Supreme Court has preserved the system that gives preference to Native American families in foster care and adoption proceedings of Native children. Miami Mayor Francis Suarez has entered the Republican presidential field. On ABC's Good Morning America, he said attention must shift away from Donald Trump.
I think if we continue to have a conversation about the former president, then the former president will be the nominee.
The government says retail sales rose last month. Bank rates, Mark Hamrick breaks it all down.
Sales of vehicles up 1.4%. Department stores are up 0.3%, and general merchandise up 0.4% in May.
CBS News brief. I'm Steve Kathan.
News is brought to you by Gingras Thompson and Walks, a statewide team of personal injury lawyers getting you the justice you deserve. Call 855-954-1186 for a free consultation.
For Civic Media News, I'm Stuart J. Waddles. Here's what you need to know in southeast Wisconsin. The cause of the plane crash in which 2 people died near Watertown yesterday isn't yet known. The FAA is conducting an investigation, with the feds confirming that the aircraft involved was a Mooney M20R with a seating capacity of 4. Due to high bacteria levels, swimming is currently prohibited at Racine's North Beach, while the nearby Zoo Beach has an advisory status. The water is tested daily and updates will be provided once conditions improve. Bounce houses were in the background of recent body camera footage from Kenosha police of when officers approached a sex offender from Racine, present at a block party with kids.
Boris, you look just like him.
Video shows the 35-year-old taking off and running through the party, trying to get away from police. He was arrested, and police say he had removed his GPS bracelet. For Civic Media News, I'm Stuart J. Waddles.
When it comes to achieving successful jury verdicts and settlements, one law firm stands out above the rest. Gingras Thompson and Walks, a $6.2 million settlement for a woman permanently paralyzed as a result of medical malpractice. $4.9 million to members of a family injured due to the negligence of a truck driver and his employer. Call Gingras Thompson and Walks today, 855-954-1186.
All into it. Gingras Thompson and Walks. GTWLawyers.com.
Hey, this is Matt from Design Garden. Remember when the internet was new? Back then, you had to leave your house to start a business. Companies used to pay programmers bags of cash to get online. Now, small businesses can get online with a Facebook business page, or Squarespace, or Google My Business, or WordPress. But which tools should you use? Can you afford to go down the wrong path? Design Garden uses modern tools to build your website the right way. Find us online at design.garden. Again, that's design.garden.
This is the story of a very special woman. Just a few knew about her superpowers. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
You are never far away from your favorite local radio station. We're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app, and we invite you to get social with us by following us.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Matnair. And as you might imagine, I've been thinking about names.
Baby names.
A fair amount. And naming a kid, as they say, you'll never realize how many people you didn't like in high school until you try to name a child.
And then something that the two of you can agree on.
Something that the two of us can agree on. And there's also, I would say an increased amount, and this is not new, of a desire to have, an individual name, a name that hasn't necessarily been that popular or that trendy. So you don't end up with a bunch of kids with the same, but you thought was a unique name, but it's like, oh, you were not alone in thinking that was like Harper, I think is some of the really popular ones right now. But also like, what is too far?
Too unique.
What is too unique? And that is a subjective statement, to each their own. But as far as just having the conversations around, like, did you personally grow up with a very unique name? And if so, we would love to hear from you as far as what that was like, how much that did create and part of your identity of having a really unique name. And if not, if you are a Jane or a Kristen, pretty standard, names.
Pretty basic names.
What is the most unique name you've come across in your travels? 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-PARTY. And, I said this the other day. This will probably not be the name, so I don't feel bad saying it on air. But I like the name Penelope.
Okay.
And to call her Penny.
Okay.
But Mike doesn't like that name. But I said that to one of my girlfriends, and she said something along the line. She's like, I like that because it's like unique enough, but it's not like scarring. And the story that always pops up for me, and this could be an urban legend at this point, because feel like this is a story that is like 3 people removed. But my mom always told this story about her friend who had another friend who worked as a physician's assistant or one of the nurses in a pediatrician's office. And she went out for a new patient and she looked at the names of the kids to bring in. And she was like, what?
She didn't know how to pronounce them.
No, and she thought she knew, but she was like, this can't be it. So then she tentatively and she just kind of graciously said, orange Jello and yellow Jello. And the mom stood up and said, Orangelo and Yolangelo. And she was like, okay, got it. And so, but it looked like on their patient sheets, orange Jello and yellow Jello, but no, it was Orangelo and Yolangelo.
Wow.
And so, another really good one is, how would you pronounce L-A? LaDasha.
Okay.
Because it's a dash.
Oh.
So would love to hear some of the most unique names. And this is not to make fun of unique names, because there's also some that are, when we think of Gwyneth Paltrow naming her kid Apple.
Which is a stupid name.
You're going to be judging. I knew you were going to be judgy about
that. That is such a stupid name.
I'm not here to be judgmental, but I do want to talk about the effects of having such a unique name, the good and the bad. 844-967-2789. Do you have a unique name, and what was it like to grow up with it? Or would love to hear stories of unique names you have come across in your life. 844-96-PARTY.
Joining us from Texas, it's Price.
Hey there.
Hey, Price.
Is Price? Would you consider Price a super unique name? Did you get made fun of it growing up?
Like Price is Right?
Yeah.
That's what I got all my life. All my life.
Did you ever come up with a good comeback?
I just sigh. I sigh, and I just say yes. Or it's kind of funny when they do the, when they do the not Billy Madison, but Happy Gilmore, The Price is Wrong
The
I wanted
price,
to say that.
the price is wrong, B.
Right. But actually, down here, like the EIGH names are off the hook. People do that way too much. Like people, like Kate, like literally Kate. People are spelling their names KEIGHT down here, or Caitlin, KEIGHTLINN, LYNN. Like it's they and former and disgraced Packer Brett Favre, his like daughter's name is like Braylon, and her name's BREIGHLEN or something like that. But
and I think there's
people just
something with
spelling
that.
it-
It's like
spelling
having
too much.
having a name that is fairly common, but then just giving it a super unique spelling that's almost more egregious, because it's like no one is ever going to spell that
really
kid's name
bad.
right because they're going to assume it's the other way.
Right. I've seen a Bailey, BEIGHLEE.
Oh gosh.
Like, come on.
Come on. But do you like your name now? Like maybe as a kid, was it hard? But now it's
I like it was. Yeah, it was when I was a kid. It was tough. Like, hey, how much do you cost? LOL. And okay. So, but yeah, I mean, the older I get, and then you see there was back in the 80s, there was a Price. There was a race car driver. An old governor of Texas was actually a Price Daniel, and he wasn't the best, but at least he was like a water conservationist, so I was on board with that.
There you go. Awesome. Thanks so much for the call, Price.
That's great. Awesome. 844-967-2789. 844-96-PARTY. Carol from Madison is joining us. Hey, Carol, thanks for calling.
Sure.
So I'm guessing Carol is not that uncommon, but do you have an uncommon name that you've come across in your life?
Yeah, I have a cousin whose father was Greek and his parents actually came over from Greece, and her name was Chrysanthi.
Chrysanthi.
And it was spelled CHRYSANTHE.
God, the Greeks love their consonants.
Yes. That's a pretty name, though.
It is really pretty. What did she have a nickname then that she went by?
She grew up being called Santhi, but now she just goes by Chris and spells it CHRYS.
Did she struggle with that as far as growing up here with such an ethnic sounding name?
She actually grew up in La Crosse, and yeah, when she could tell when teachers got to her name, like first name and last name were both ethnic. So it was. She said when she saw them just kind of looking, she would say it's.
Yeah, like it's the pregnant pause of being like,
yeah.
It's Chrysanthi. I got you. I know. I'm probably next because it's alphabetical. That's really interesting. I think that brings up a whole other conversation. Thanks so much for the call, Carol. As far as unique names that are cultural, like not unique in the culture that they come from.
Sure.
But being first generation, you come here and people look at your name. Like I think of my some friends, and like it just looks like a lot of consonants. And like once you learn how to say it, it's like we all can
It's
say
not a problem.
we can all say Antetokounmpo now, right?
More or less.
But like for the most part, we can all say his name because we've just practiced it enough. But when you first look at it, you're like,
whoa,
what order do these consonants and these sounds? Talk about learning how to read phonetically. You're like, is this the right way that I'm supposed to do it?
Seriously.
But like your parents think it's a very normal name because that's the culture that they come from. But yet then when you come here growing up in America and feeling like, oh, I'm just going to have a different nickname so everyone can pronounce my name correctly.
Just call me Bob.
Yeah.
844-967-2789. 844-96-PARTY. Jeff from Milwaukee. Hey, Jeff, what do you want to share with us?
Hey, Kristen. Hey, Jane. So my best friend from grade school, who I'm still friends with since like we were 5 and we're in our late 50s, my buddy's got an older brother. He's a hippie farmer from rural Stevens Point, and he and his sister-in-law had 3 kids in the late 70s, 2 boys and a girl. They named their first boy Forgiveness, and then the second boy's name was Deliverance, and then their daughter's name was Amnesty. And those are still, to this day, the oddest names I've ever heard. And when I see my friend frequently, I'm asking about his nephews and his niece, and he tells me that they go by their first initial and then their middle names, which are common middle names. So that's basically how they got.
Because how old are the kids now?
Well, they were all born between like 78 and 82, so 40.
So they're adults
in that range. Yeah. Oh yeah, and they're all doing really well in life, but they all went through life basically using just like forgiveness. It was like F, and then William is the middle name, and then their last name. But those are their names: forgiveness, deliverance, and amnesty.
Deliverance is an awful lot to hang around a little kid's neck.
Deliverance, especially because you think of the movie and you're like, "Oh, this is a lot." But that is
exactly
that. And do the parents themselves have any regrets of naming their kids that you know of?
No, not at all.
Wow.
No, not at all. They're still hippie farmers. They still live in like Junction City, which is west of Point. And they're in their 70s now, but they're still, they're super proud of what they named their children. It was just kind of their thing.
That is super. Well, at least it's a conversation starter. Thanks so much for the call, Jeff.
844-967-2789. That is 844-96-party. Did you grow up with an unusual name? Do you know someone? Do you have a favorite unusual name? Rob from Port Edwards joining us. Hey, Rob, what do you want to share?
Good morning. I have 3 beautiful grandsons. The oldest is going to be 10 here in August, and they're a span of 3 years. The first one's name is Owen, the second is Otis, and the third is Obi. And there's all reasons for each of their names, that there's a backstory behind each of the names, but we call them the O brothers, and for the chaos. Yeah, in fact, at one time I built them a workbench, and I made up a placard for the back of the workbench saying the O brothers demolition on request, kind of a thing.
Oh, I love that.
And they're just little gorillas. Yeah, they look like the names that they are. They're just cool kids.
I feel like you could also call them the O-line, like an offensive line.
Yes, we could. Yeah, they're remarkable, and they're all the O's. And all 3 amigos walk to school every day, and it's an instant hockey team.
For sure, absolutely. So it's Owen, Otis, and Obi. I like those actually. Yes, Obi is probably the most unique. Yeah. Otis and Owen I've certainly heard before.
They each are individuals, and their name fits their personality in a offhanded way. But Obi is the charmer. He's Opa's favorite. Don't say that. Don't tell him that.
He's the youngest. Of course.
He's disarming. Yeah, he's 6 now, and he's amazingly disarming. He can get into the mischief and walk away, with his little angelic halo on, and yeah, we're good.
That's
Have
awesome.
a lovely day, ladies. Good
Have a lovely day,
Rob.
you do, Rob.
Thank you so much.
That's really funny. I like O-line. I think that's really funny.
The boys. I could see that too. That's all perfect.
So we're talking about I don't think we'll do anything crazy unique. Like, I'm not trying to come up with a name that no one's ever been named before, but having
something a little special.
Special. I'm very partial to, since we know we're having a girl, names that, like, girls' names that also can be shortened to like boy nicknames. Like, I have a girlfriend who named her daughter Georgia, and she calls her George.
Okay.
You don't like that?
No.
You're so judgy.
Yes, I am. And Apple is a stupid name.
It's not a stupid name.
It's a piece of fruit.
I think the name Elon Musk, I can't even pronounce what Elon Musk named his kids.
That's intentional.
And so we would still love to hear from you. Did you grow up with a unique name? Do you know someone with a unique name? What's the balance between individualism and not scarring your children? 844-967-2789. We're going to take one more break. We'll be back in just a minute. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
The summer heat can really get to you. Hot, sticky, you feel like you're melting. But Wauwatosa, coming in July, it'll be easy to cool off. Enjoy Ice Cream Social. This family-run, family-friendly business is more than just ice cream. It's a cool community hangout spot for friends and family. Let's talk about the ice cream. 16 delicious rotating flavors direct from the chocolate shop in Madison. The perfect way to stay sweet and cool this summer. Opening in July. Joy Ice Cream Social. Scoop, snack, shop. 8334 West North Avenue. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram.
If you're grilling this weekend, be sure to have plenty of artisan hearth buns and rolls on hand. Fancy equipment and secret sauces are great, but once you've mastered the basics, it's all about the bun. Your perfectly grilled burgers and hot dogs deserve the best, and with several varieties to choose from, including Wisconsin brat buns, gourmet brioche, French, and onion rolls, the bakers of Artisan Hearth have the buns and rolls your family will love. Artisan Hearth, locally baked, delivered fresh daily.
This summer, 5:40 a.m. WAUK has a new lineup.
Yes, that's awesome.
Starting at 6 a.m. Up North News, 8 to 10, The Earl Ingram Show. Mondays, 8 to 9, Under the Helmet with the Gravedigger. Gilbert Brown and Earl Ingram. 10 to 12, As Goes Wisconsin. At noon, Civic Media Network News. At 12:15, Town Call. 1 to 3, The Todd Alba Show. 3 to 4, Matt Flint Direct. 4 to 6, The Devil's Advocates with Dom and Cruz. At 6 to 7, The Maggie Dawn Show. On 5:40 a.m. WAUK.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. More clouds than sun this afternoon with highs around 69. Northerly winds 8 to 15 miles an hour. Lows level off around 48. Tonight, partly cloudy skies. Lots of sunshine tomorrow. High temperatures reach up to 73. Dry with seasonal temps Saturday and Sunday and highs from the upper 70s to the low 80s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 63 degrees.
I thought love was only true in fairy tales, and for someone else, but not for me. Our love was out to get me.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Madnair, and we are talking about growing up with a unique name or naming your kids something very unique, because I am obviously one of the 5 questions everyone asks right now is how are you feeling? When are you due? Have you started thinking what is it?
What is it?
Are you finding out the gender? And then inevitably, I forgot what the other one is, but then it's inevitably have you started thinking about names? And we have not come up with anything.
We haven't landed
yet. But I would like something unique enough that it's not super common, but also not necessarily so unique that they are
scarred for life.
And so telling stories or asking for your input of what it was like to grow up with a weird name or a unique name, or anyone you know with a unique name.
844-967-2789, 844-96-PARTY. You can call and or text. Andy joining us from Madison. Hey, Andy, what do you want to say?
Yeah, so I'm hearing your conversation, and we named our kid a fairly unique name, I think, but it's not, I don't think, like star-worthy. We named him Hendrix.
Hendrix?
Yeah.
So Hendrix, like Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
I actually really like that. Because I like the name Henry.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
Yeah, it's close enough, but he's also probably always going to be the only one in his class with a name like that. And so what I've noticed, he's in preschool now, and like every kid has a pretty unique name.
Yeah.
You know, like there's not a whole lot of Johns or Pauls or Peters or anything. It's like one of our friends named their kid Atticus.
That's a classic.
I dated an Atticus, and he was very proud of his name.
Was he really?
Oh my God,
that's a
he was so
classic.
pretentious.
Yeah. Just because you're named Atticus doesn't make you Gregory Peck. Nice try.
But I like Hendrix, although once he gets to drinking age, people will probably start asking him if he was named after the gin.
They already do. I didn't really expect that. It's like, oh, is it a PKS or an X? Yeah.
Well, very funny. Well, I like that name. I think it still sounds like a name. Unlike, thanks so much for the call, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
We kind of stumbled upon this because there was a Vice article talking exactly about this, is what it's like to grow up with a weird name. And they were talking to a kid named someone who's now 27, but someone named Merlin, and all the jokes that they got as a kid.
Merlin is a tough thing.
Merlin's tough. There was also Gandalf from Holland. They would ask him if he was a wizard and whether or not he'd grow a gray beard.
Well, of course.
They talked to a woman named Plum, who is 19 right now. And she said, I hated my name when I was younger because kids are just a-holes. And she's from New Zealand. Kids would eat plums and say, oh my God, I'm eating you.
Oh.
But there's one guy they talked to named Biker.
His name is Biker.
His name was Biker because his dad loved bikes. And now he loves bikes. And so he made it part of his identity from a young age. He goes, I probably wouldn't be as into motorcycles without my name. And so I do think that that's interesting as far as like, if you have a really unique name, how much that comes into like a huge part of your identity. Because if you grow up kind of having, I remember, I think one of the first Am I the Sphincters we did was on a young, like 16 or 17-year-old. And she never said what her actual name is, but she was fighting with her stepmom because her stepmom wanted to like rename her from this unique name that her mother had given her. And because her mom had died at a young age, like her name, despite being so unique, was very much like associated with her mother.
Sure.
And so it was really funny. I was talking to a girlfriend who her husband's last name is Coley, who's also a good friend of mine. So Colli.
Okay.
And we were talking about baby names. And she's like, well, you could take my favorite name they had just had a daughter and they named her Thea. So Thea. But her favorite girl name is Eve. And she's like, well, you can take Eve since we didn't get to use that one. And I was like, why didn't you use Eve? And she goes, because of Coley. I was like, what?
Eve Coley.
E. coli. She's like, you have to think about everything. You have to think of all the different ways that they're going to make fun of your kid.
And what rhymes and what can rhyme with it.
I was like, what 5 and 6, like under 10-year-old knows what E. coli is?
We have a text from the 920. Johnny Watermullen, who was one of our Civic Media colleagues. Johnny Watermullen and I have a sister named Juice and a brother named Red.
No.
Haha. However, I know a woman in Hudson, Wisconsin. Her name is Sunny Dafer Salen.
Sunny? I actually don't mind the name Sunny.
Sunny Dafer Salen.
Oh, Sunny Dafer Salen. Oh my gosh. That's pretty good. That sounds like a Bart Simpson joke. So yeah, I think Siete, there's another one in here. Siete
is a number.
She went to a Spanish school in Texas and was mocked for having a name. That means 7.
Oh,
but also like Siete. I actually think Siete, if you didn't know that it was the number 7 in Spanish, kind of sounds nice.
What I find interesting though, and from what Andy said, in his son's preschool now, there aren't any Johns and Marks and all of those things. So in another 15 years, 20 years, those will be unique.
I think there will still be lots of Johns and
Roberts
and I don't know. Well, we joked about that. I remember at the beginning of this congressional session when Republicans started taking over, like they took over the House. And so for all the House committees, there was new people who were leading those committees. And there was that story that broke that says there's more men named Mike leading House committees than there are women. And I went on my rampage being married to a Mike and having my best friend named Mike and knowing plenty of other Mikes
There's enough Mikes.
There's enough Mikes. There's enough Michaels in the world. We can move on from that name for a little while and everyone will be just fine. There is more names than Michael, John, and Matthew. Well, that was fun. I don't know. I didn't get any new name ideas. Nothing stuck. Although I do like Hendrix. So, and that maybe that's not for a girl. Maybe. I don't know. I'll run it by Mike.
We got some time.
All right. Well, that'll about do it for us today. Thank you for texting. Thank you for calling. Thank you for being part of the show. We'll be back tomorrow. Todd Elbow will be here for our roundup of the week, the best, the worst, and the weirdest of headlines and a little headline game. So come back then, 10 a.m. tomorrow. Otherwise, thanks for being part of the show. This has been As Goes Wisconsin.
Then I saw her face. Now I